Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, my entitled racist mother-in-law hates me for marrying her daughter and demands that we give her our new house. Here is what happened. The title story starts like this. Like many people, I don't get along with my mother-in-law, but I deal with it because of how much I love my wife. The great thing though is that my wife agrees that her mother is over the top and hating me, so she doesn't really force me to go near her. I am allowed to stay home if I want while she sees her family, but on special occasions I will just put on a fake smile and deal with her. The main issues regarding her mother is that she is entitled and she hates the fact that I am Latino while they are white. My mother-in-law had certain expectations from day one that were just never plausible. In her mind, for my wedding as the groom, I was supposed to pay for her to have some amazing expensive dress that was even more than my wife's. Also, she wanted a toast in her honor and anything else that would either make her be in the spotlight or raise the budget and think I was solely responsible for it. Me and my wife ended up going about 50-50 on the wedding, with both of our parents chipping in a little bit. The entire time also claiming that I should be paying more and I was cheap and poor because I was Latino. It did not matter to her that I had a good job or anything. In her mind I was Latino and that meant I could not have money. I had a house before the wedding and my wife moved in with me about a year before we got married. My mother-in-law hated that as well and said that we were going to hell for it, which I feel really gives a good example of the kind of woman that she is. It was a nice house and we've been living in it ever since. It's big enough that we have a guest bedroom and lots of space to do anything we really want. She loves to cook and has a big kitchen to do so in. I like to build big Lego sets since I'm a nerd and display them in the basement. One day, mother-in-law called up my wife and after a few minutes insisted on talking to me on the phone. This was a very odd request that I just knew was headed for trouble, but decided to just get it over with anyway. Me, hello, mother-in-law? Mother-in-law, hello, hola! I was just calling to say that I spoke to your sister-in-law and that she had her baby. She thinks she needs to throw in random Spanish words and yell for me to understand her. Despite English being my first language and never having communication issues. Me, oh, congratulations. Did everything go okay? Mother-in-law, of course it went okay. Anyway, now that she had the baby, I figured it was time for her to get a bigger place. Because, you know, they are in that one-room apartment. So I told her that you and your wife would switch with them. Me? Switch with them? You're joking, right? Mother-in-law? Of course not. You don't need that big house just for the two of you. Plus, you Latinos are used to living in small places and needing to sleep on the floor for room. You could fit 20 of you people in a one-room apartment. I told them that you could be packed by the end of the week. Me, we are not moving out of our house. You should not have promised them anything without even talking to me and my wife first. I hung up the phone and told my wife what her mother had done. She was shocked because her mother said nothing to her about any of this. She called her back to affirm that we had no plans to move out of our house and mother-in-law had no right to try and make that kind of deal in the first place. Then she called her sister to congratulate her on the baby and explained that their crazy mother promised her something without even asking us. She was not mad and understood that her mother is 100% insane. You would think that would be the end of things with us saying no and my sister-in-law not being upset about it. Nope, because my mother-in-law is entitled and doesn't understand the meaning of the word no. She only understands getting her way and doing anything in her power to accomplish that. Enter me and my wife going out for a date night and coming back to find a padlock on the door. I own the house, like fully outright own it. There is no mortgage or bank to foreclose or landlord to evict me, so it really makes no sense. Then in our mailbox was a letter from mother-in-law telling us that she went ahead and changed the locks so my sister-in-law could move in. That's right, she thought she could just padlock the door and decide the house belonged to somebody else. It was late and we were exhausted and now locked out of our house. Mother-in-law was not picking up her phone and we did not know what we wanted to do. We were debating calling the police, but since it was not an emergency, we could have been waiting outside for hours while things got sorted. So instead, we went to my sister-in-law's apartment and spent the night sleeping on her couch. I'm so glad that out of both of these daughters, neither one is anything like their mother. The next day, all three of us got in touch with mother-in-law and told her that it was my house and she couldn't just take it. She got angry at that point and started yelling and calling me slurs. That she was going to get me kicked out of the country despite the fact that I was born here. Even sister-in-law was telling her she didn't want the house and that her and her husband were looking to buy their own anyway. But no, mother-in-law insisted that they have my house and she is not gonna let us in. That her having the key means she controls it now, so either sister-in-law moves in or nobody is gonna get into the house. I gave up at that point and elected to call the police and tell them what happened. They came over to try and talk some sense into mother-in-law and get her side of the story. Her side being that she owned the house and the dirty Latino supposedly was trying to marry into her family in order to get it. I explained that I owned the house and could provide any kind of paperwork they wanted in order to prove that, including documents dating back to before I even knew my wife. Also, my wife and sister-in-law backing me up made it clear to the police who was lying. They told mother-in-law to give me the key and let me back into my house. She refused right in front of the cops. She then did the dumbest thing ever and said in front of them that she would make sure I burn in that house before she lets me live in it. That was more than enough for them to arrest her and for me to sue her. In the end, the police got somebody to break the lock and let us back into our home. As for mother-in-law, she is not allowed near us currently due to a restraining order and is also not allowed near the house anymore. My sister-in-law has also gotten no contact with her because of what she had done in this whole situation, not wanting the baby growing up near that kind of person. And yeah, Riper Stars, I gotta say in this story also props to the sister-in-law, because at first I expected her to be on the side of the mother-in-law, but that was not the case at all. A very welcome surprise. Either way, if you enjoyed the story, please don't forget to like the video and maybe even post a comment, because that would help me tremendously. The next one is titled Ambulance Karen. I remembered this incident because I just spoke to someone I was working with at the time. Roughly 8 years ago, I was working in a college with students with additional needs. Myself and 2 others had the job to support them during the transition from school to college and help them get a qualification of some kind. On Christmas that year, we had a little party for the students and they all brought some food from home. One student had a very strict diet because certain food ingredients or chemicals such as potassium could kill him. He was also very immunocompromised and prone to seizures. His care plan said that if he gets sick or injures himself in any way, then an ambulance must be called. He was tucking into some homemade onion bhajis made by his parents, so we thought they were safe for him to eat, when all of a sudden his eyes roll back and he projectile vomits all over the table. I go to ring an ambulance while my coworkers get the other students out of the room so they could clean up. Once the paramedics had checked him over and looked through his care plan, they were concerned as to what had caused the vomiting and the almost seizure, and so said they needed to get him to the hospital ASAP. The student was unable to stand without feeling dizzy, and so the paramedics took him to the ambulance in a wheelchair. About 5 minutes later, they come back and tell us that a car was blocking the ambulance in, and if we could find out who it belonged to be moved. The college receptionist tells me it's the head of the college's car and calls her but gets no response. I asked the receptionist if she knows when the head witch is in, and she directs me to the room she is in. So then I find the room and knock on the door, and I am told to enter, and I ask if I could speak to HB. She says she's in a meeting and asks if it can wait. I say that it can't, and she asks why. I tell her why and also that this student may be in danger. She then says, "Well, I'm in the middle of an important meeting right now, so the ambulance can wait." Dumbfounded, I explain the situation again and that all she needs to do is move her car. Just to add here, how much of an idiot do you have to be in the first place to park in front of a sodding ambulance when there's no way for it to get out? HB looks me dead in the eye and says, "It should not be parked in my spot anyway, so it can wait," and then waves me out of the room. It's a good job, I'm not a violent person, but I still wanted to chin her. I went back to the paramedics and they were disgusted. I tell them that there is not anything I can do and that I need to get back to the other students. About 15 minutes later, I see HB storming through the reception area with a face like thunder and with a paramedic in tow. She moves her car. Once she is buggered off, the paramedic tells me that he went to speak to her, and as soon as she looked at him, she rolled her eyes. She tells the paramedic that she will report him for embarrassing her in front of her work colleagues. You embarrassed yourself, love. The student was okay back with us after a few hours. It turns out he had just eaten too much too quickly. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I would say it's always good to see a Karen getting embarrassed. I just cannot get enough of that. And the next one is another Karen story. So at work we have a complimentary bus to get people home or to the airport or to wherever they would need to go. This week the AC broke, but we have it scheduled to be fixed on Monday. A lady asked us for a ride to her meeting for work and we agreed, but we didn't notify her of the AC. The next day comes and she comes out for the bus. She is upset that the AC has not been fixed in the one day it's been. She tells me the person on the phone promised to pay for her Uber if we did not get the AC fixed. I said, "Ma'am, I was the one who spoke to you on the phone." She then left to an outside area. Apparently while she was out there, she reported us to corporate and then called the effing cops. I don't understand why she called the cops. I am still in disbelief. She told the cops that we stole from her, and what exactly did she think the cops would do? Force us to pay for her Uber at gunpoint? I really don't understand. And the next one is another entitled Karen story. Because yeah, we just cannot get enough of them. I don't know if this belongs here, but here you go. To set the scene, I, 22 female, had just come from a pet store at the end of the small shopping mall and was driving past a Walmart to get to where I needed to go. I was driving alongside the mall to be able to get to the intersection so I could get across the street to my next stop. And here is where the entitled woman comes in. As I am driving along, a large red truck decided it was a good idea to run a stop sign in front of me and I almost hit her. The front of my car was about 4 feet away from the side of her truck, so as any normal person did, I laid on my horn. Now keep in mind, I have my 16-month-old GSD puppy with extreme anxiety regarding cars in my backseat, so I was being extra cautious. What she did next has left me speechless and just right around confused me. She slammed on her brakes, blocking the flow of traffic from both sides, and proceeded to stick her tongue out at me and continuously wag it for a solid 30 seconds. She just sat there for a few minutes blocking traffic. She was a very large, unattractive, middle-aged white woman with the blonde short hair with her husband in the car on top of that. So after a few minutes after she wagged her tongue at me, she continued and turned to drive past me and then yet again wagged her tongue at me in a taunting manner. I would have been fine with her flipping me off or even just yelling at me, but I feel somehow violated by having a middle-aged woman lick at me. Embarrassed for her too, people baffle me sometimes, especially the older generations who are extremely entitled. Especially to someone who is obviously 40 to 50 years younger than them. Never thought I would ever encounter someone like her, yet here we are. And the next one is titled, Insurance Am I the A-hole? I have an old car that I bought for $2,000 when I was 16 and I'm 26 now. In the time I've had it, I've learned a lot about car maintenance and I fix it up with junkyard parts and it's pretty cheap to keep it running. It's dented and rusty as hell, but it goes and it's cheap. So anyway, my neighbor parks in his driveway and I park on the street, and he's gotten mad at me for parking in the street because he finds it harder to navigate his big truck around my car. I asked him if he wants me to move my car ahead a bit or behind a bit on the street because I'm happy to do that, but I have to park somewhere on the street because I don't have a driveway or garage space. He did not like that and he doesn't want me parking on the street at all. However, I'm not about to park on a whole different street than I live at. Anyway, this week I was sitting on my fire escape reading a book and I saw my neighbor drive out of his driveway right into my car's side. I grabbed my phone and started filming ASAP. I walked out to the car still filming and got a good video of the damage to the door panel. It was dented and scratched and now my car was already pretty beat. It's got body panels from 3 different cars, dents and dings all over. It's got damage to the convertible soft top that I fixed up with glue and patches, etc. It's a tough old girl. So the new damage did not bother me much. I did not plan on fixing it, but it did bother me that my neighbor hit and run my car. Especially because he knew it belonged to me. So after a few days of thinking on it, I decided to file an insurance claim. I sent the company the video which had got my neighbor's license plate in it. I thought they could find his insurance and then settle. The insurance company said that for a hit and run the policy was that I needed to file a police report, so I did. I was not expecting that much, but I got a $1,600 payout from my neighbor's insurance. I guess they appraised my car based on its estimated value based on model and year and did not pay attention to the fact that it's an absolute beater with a lot of DIY fixes. Anyway, my neighbor is mad at me and came to my house after 3 insurance things had paid out, and he was looking to yell at me. But my landlord was there in the hallway doing some repairs, and when he came looking for which door was mine, my landlord told him that if he was not invited, to get the hell off his property. I guess he could tell this guy was angry and probably was not a good idea to send him up to my room. I feel a little bad that I hid, it feels cowardly. But also, it was cowardly that he did a hit and run. Am I the a-hole for taking a huge insurance payout on my beta car because my neighbor hit it? And yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know in the comments what you think about this. Do you think that OP is the a-hole or not? Comment number 1 said, not the a-hole. It doesn't matter what state your car was in, at best he is an irresponsible driver, at worst he intentionally committed a crime because of an unreasonable vendetta. Either way, he should face the consequences. Comment number 2, not the a-hole. Seriously? He hit your car and then got mad at you? F him. If he comes back, file a report for harassment. Regarding the insurance payout, yes, they pay you for the value of the car if the car is totaled. It's considered totaled when the price to fix it exceeds the value of the car. However, if the car still drives, you can still drive it, but your car might have a salvage title now, which means you may not be able to drive it legally or resell depending on your state. Good luck with your new car search. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I would definitely agree that OP is not the a-hole here. Obviously, if someone hits your car, you are then not the a-hole for getting a huge insurance payout, especially if the stupid person did a hit and run, then he deserves it even more. The next one is titled Bank Revenge Story. This actually began with something that happened 6 years ago. I was looking to buy my first house, so obviously the first place I went looking for a mortgage was where I do all of the rest of my banking. I have had a bank account at this bank for 20 plus years at this point, all the way back when my parents opened up an account for me when I was 5 or 6. I have been a client of theirs ever since with a checking account, savings account and got a credit card with them literally the week that I turned 18, as well as 2 vehicle loans. Credit card had never been insanely overdrawn and full, car payments never missed a single time. When I went in asking about a mortgage, they just straight up said no. Was not even a question, not even a lowball offer of like 50k less than what I was hoping to get, literally just a flat out no, and saying that they were being extra picky about first time mortgages right now. So my next stop was a mortgage broker. She was great and ended up getting me a larger amount than what I was looking for and a lower interest rate. But what she said was odd was that again, with her putting in requests with literally every bank and mortgage lender in the entire province that I live in, the bank that I do all of my banking at was still the only place that would not give me a mortgage, which she said is extremely unusual for a request from a broker. So I ended up signing with another bank and I went back to my original bank to explain the situation to them. They reiterated the "we are just being extra picky with first time mortgages right now," said they understood my disappointment and then tacked on, "But if you can prove that you can make the payments for 5 years with them, we'd be more than happy to take over when you need to refinance," which really pissed me off. It even made my mom go mad when I told her that she went into the bank and met with a branch manager to talk about how mad she was. Fast forward to last year and I am ready to refinance after 5 years. Out of curiosity, I go to my original bank, who still have all of my banking except my mortgage with, and ask about refinancing, and they offer me some horrible rate that would increase my payments by like 120 bucks per month of pure interest. So I told them to get bent, went back to new bank and they offer me an even lower rate, which reduced my payments by $75 per month in interest lower than the previous 5 years. The pandemic hit my work pretty bad up here and I had spent essentially the second half of 2020 and the entirety of 2021 living off of my credit card so that I did not miss a mortgage payment and risk losing my house. Work is now extremely busy to the point where we are booked solid into 2023 already, but now I've got a good amount of credit card debt built up that I need to pay off too. Give my original bank one more shot and go in to talk about a line of credit to do some debt consolidation to lower my interest payments and lowering my credit card limit, and they again just flat out say no. So I go to a new bank where my mortgage is and open a new checking account, open up a new savings account, give them my previous 6 pay stubs to show that I am back to working 40+ hours a week for the past 3 months, and with those 3 things I instantly qualified for nearly 20k in credit from them, which was enough to close out everything at the other bank. I got 2 bank drafts made up and actually scheduled an appointment with the financial advisor guy who denied me the line of credit the week before, even though I knew that he was not needed to deposit the drafts. Sat down at his desk again, pulled out the drafts, and he went white. Told him one draft was for the credit card, the other was for the auto loan, that I had already transferred all of the funds out of my checking and savings accounts and that I wanted all of my accounts shut down. The branch manager poked his head in while the advisor was processing the drafts to ask what was up, and I explained to him what I had all written up and said that if they didn't want my tens of thousands of dollars of interest payments over the next 20 years, other banks happily will. All he could muster up was a half-assed apology and again, "We hope that you might come back to us again in the future." And yeah, Ripe Stars, I gotta say, I'm not sure where I got this from, but someone when I was young always told me that banks are definitely not your allies or friends, and you should always be careful when dealing with them. However, I am curious why OP's bank did not want to deal with him in terms of the mortgage. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.